just a thought, relax. Just a thought, relax. Just a thought, relax. Just a thought, relax.
Alright, so we're down in DC. I've got a surprise proposal shoot coming up here. This is the last one I have right now. The rest are canceled due to the social distancing. I was going through a lot of consideration on whether doing the shoot was the right thing, but since I can be at a proper social distance while still capturing these photos, I think it's alright. I am going to wear a mask during the shoot so that while I'm talking to them, there's no risk there. We'll be at least 6 feet away for most of the time, and the space is pretty wide open. There aren't too many people out here. So we're gonna give it a go, and we're gonna catch this proposal. Right now I gotta get there. They're on their way there, and I will be there just before them, and everything should be good. National Mall, DC proposal right near the Washington Monument. Should be a good time. Let's go. We had a great day here. The weather was fantastic, and this was an amazing couple. They were super easy to work with. Everything went well from the bat. She said yes, and we were off and running. I like to have my couples start off with just walking around, holding hands, kind of focusing on each other a little more than doing straight up portraits where they're looking at the camera. I feel like it helps them just kind of remember, oh, hey, yeah, I'm here with my best friend, and they kind of forget about you taking photos, and they just act a little more natural, a little more carefree, and a little more spontaneous. I prefer, like I think most couples do, that the photos are more candid and just show them in love rather than too many post photos. They do have their place, but too many just gets kind of boring. Now here we're keeping them moving, just getting shots of them through the trees. I really try to leverage as much of the environment that we're shooting in as possible. Two things that I think are really important while you're in a portrait session is listening to your couples, listening to your clients, and really trying to leverage the environment at the same time. For example, while we were walking around, she mentioned that while they were driving by, she said, oh, she loved the trees. So immediately I knew that I had to incorporate those trees in some way. She didn't necessarily even ask for that. She had just mentioned it, and once I mentioned it, she was like, oh, wow, that's a great idea. And I was like, yeah, I know. You had just came up with it. Sometimes your clients don't know what they necessarily want, but you can pull things from them that allow you to really deliver on what they're looking for. And here with this bench shot again, we're really just trying to leverage all elements of the environment as much as possible. This is a life-changing event for them, so we really want to squeeze it for everything it's worth and really help them remember the time, remember the environment, remember the scenery, and just really soak it all in. I really make it my job to push them into soaking up the experience as much as possible. Now we could have easily just walked in front of a couple of trees, took a couple of photos, and had some pretty generic portraits of them standing in front of the monument and kept it pretty simple. But I like to bring people to move around a little bit and kind of really feel out their environment and just allow them to realize how special this scene is and really imprint it into their memory forever. Now that might sound a little crazy, a little over the top, but I really believe it's the photographer's job to really help amplify the experience, not just take photos. And I've seen photographers that don't do that, and it kind of breaks my heart inside. So I always try to be a photographer that helps amplify their experience. And here we have the jump shot, not basketball. She really wanted this one. This was the only one that she actually asked for. Again, she didn't even ask for it specifically. I had to directly ask her, are there any photos that you saw that you really wanted to get out of this session? And at first she said no, and then eventually she did remember that, oh yeah, she wanted this photo. No problem, we got it. I wanted to get a few shots of the ring just on its own, kind of in the environment. And here we have a lily leaf with the monument in the back, and I think it kind of helps pull things together. And on my way back to the car, I noticed that they had stopped and sat by the monument, and off from the distance, it looked really cool. So I lined up this shot, and I thought it came out great. It has the monument there, and you can see them at the very bottom right, sitting on the sidewalk there. I always try to over deliver. So if they're leaving and I see a way to kind of frame up a shot shot where it looks like a really cool landscape shot and they're off in the distance, and it just gives a lot of context to the scene. I love those photos. You know, again, it's just amplifying the experience, really showing them how special that day was. And now back to the house. Alright, so we are back at home, and the proposal shoot today down at the National Mall in Washington, D.C. went well. I made it there just before they did, so I was set up, ready to go. He proposed, she said yes. I took photos, and that was that. The social distancing worked out. There were quite a few people out in the park, but they were spaced out and kept their distance. And the nice thing about taking portraits is that you can maintain that separation, that social distancing, and still record photos for your couples while they're getting engaged or proposing or things like that. A couple small things where you would want to get a detail shot, so you would set the ring on an interesting texture or something like that. I had the girl do that instead of doing that myself, so I didn't touch her ring and then give it back to her and things like that. But overall, again, the shoot went really well. There were plenty of people around, but I was able to Photoshop those people out so it looked clean and clear. On a typical busy day, it would be nearly impossible to Photoshop out all of the people, or it would have taken 3 times as long probably to do that if everybody was out and about. But there were a lot of people out for exercise with kids, and mostly they were just families. So there were no groups gathering together. They just looked like independent households getting their daily dose of fresh air, or maybe weekly dose of fresh air. I know that was the first time I've been out really moving around in over 2 weeks. We did consider canceling it, but over the next 2 months, it's probably not going to improve much here. So we decided to just go through with the shoot since we could maintain that social distancing and didn't want to put it off or have him do it without getting any photos for it. So I'm glad he was still able to get photos of his proposal and some engagement photos also. Once I got back home, I edited a few photos for them and sent them out so they have something to share for social media and telling friends and family and things like that. I'll be finishing the rest up over the next week. I just sent those as a sneak peek for the rest of the gallery, and that's a wrap for today. Good night.